Let's go ahead and solve some quadratics by factoring. And as we do this, we're going to use the tools we've learned in class, and that is our area model. So let's go ahead and go to the area model, start drawing that out. And I'm going to start putting in those pieces that are very, very important to us. So I'm going to start with our leading term here, that is x squared. And then I'm going to go ahead and put in our constant down at the diagonal from it, which is 24. And then what I'm going to do, just realizing based off of multiplying out linear terms always, that these diagonals will add to that negative 11x. Now, just as a reminder, as we start this process, and once we have everything drawn in, we're going to find the product of the main diagonal that's in there. So I'm going to take x squared and multiply by 24, which is 24x squared. And once we've got that, I'm going to start looking for multiples or numbers that are going to multiply to 24x squared. So let's go ahead and break it down. I'm going to take 24x squared. I'm going to say, okay, well, 1x times 24x is 24x squared. 2x times 12x is 24x. And I'm just going to keep with the list. 3x times 8x is 24. 4x and 6x is 24x. And then I might go, well, does 5 work? But once these numbers get close to each other, for example, like 4 and 6 are close to each other, that usually indicates we're getting pretty close to being done. So once we have this list, what we need to do is we are going to look for the set that gets us a negative 11x. So that means I have to pay attention to, because we have a negative 11, I'm gonna have to pay attention to how this works. We multiplied to a positive number, but they're going to add to a negative number. Well, that must mean that in order to multiply to a positive, in order to multiply to a positive but add to a negative, both numbers must be negative. Okay, so both numbers are going to have to be negative. And as we go through here, we just kind of go, okay, well, let's see how we can get a negative 11. Can 1 and 24 get us a negative 11 if we add them? No. How about 2 and 24? 2 and 24? No. What about 3 and 8? Well, 3 and 8 will get me an 11. 3x and 8x, if I add them together, will give us 11x. But I need a negative 11x. Well, if I put a negative on both of these, guess what? Negative 3x plus negative 8x is negative 11x. Oh yeah, and check it out. Negative 3 times negative 8. X is positive 24x squared. That's what we're looking for right there. So those must be our numbers. So I'm going to put those in. Negative 3x and negative 8x. Now, once we're here, we are going to go ahead and we are going to find our greatest common factor. And what we're going to do is we're going to pick one row. It doesn't matter which one it is. We are going to find the greatest common factor from that row. So I'm going to circle this one right here. I'm going to say, let's find the greatest common factor from there. So just as we do this, the greatest common factor of x squared minus 8x, well, the first number is the only number that'll divide 1 and negative 8 is going to be 1. But the greatest common factor also involves a variable. And check it out. This has an x. This is 2 x's on there. X squared is x times x. So because this has 1, I'm going to have 1x. Our greatest common factor must be 1x or just x. Once we have that, we are going to fill in the remaining missing locations on our area model. We're just use multiplication to do this. I'm going to say, for example, I'm going to say, well, x times what is x squared? Well, x times x is x squared. Once I've got that, I'm going to go to the next one. I'm going to say, okay, well, x times what is negative 8x? Well, what do? X times negative 8 is negative 8x. And then I just keep working through here. I'm going to say, okay, well, let's see here. X times what is negative 3x? Well, I know x times negative 3 is negative 3x. And then I'm just going to check to make sure everything works. I'm going to say, well, -3 times -8 is positive 24. All right, so we have factored it at this point. We have x minus 8. And let's go ahead and write this. I've got x minus 8 times x minus 3 equals to 0. And what we have to do now is we just simply have to solve for the x values. So I'm going to go ahead and take x minus 8. I'm going to set that equal to 0. And I'm going to take x minus 3 and set that equal to 0. And just solve for x. So how do we do that? I'm going to add 8 over. And that gives me x equals to positive 8. So one of our answers must be positive 8. And then we get rid of that minus 3. I'm going to add that 3 over. And that'll tell us that x equals to positive 3. So our solutions should be 8 and 3. So we solve this quadratic by factoring using the area model and then bringing it over and breaking it into its pieces, setting them equal to 0 and solving. All right, I hope that helps you out with solving some quadratics using factoring.